Hello fellow adventure riders, Mike here from moto-mule.com. This video is to demonstrate the installation process for the moto-mule cargo rack designed for the Suzuki DR650. Let's begin. The first thing you'll have to do is remove the rack from its packaging. The rack is supplied with all the hardware required to install it. Due to the fact that the turn signals mount to the rack, you will have to remove the side panels and seat to get to the wiring connections to unplug them. You will find the connector for the right-hand turn signal next to the battery box. You'll need to pull out the safety catch on the connector in order to get it to pull apart. Installing the rack is really quite simple. Disconnecting the rear turn signals is the most time-consuming part of the process. The connector for the left-hand turn signal is often hidden behind the regulator rectifier. Remove the two bolts that hold it to the frame to gain access to the connector. Just like the other side, you'll have to pull the safety catch out to get the plug to separate. If your DR650 is equipped with the factory cargo rack like the bike in this video, there are two small bolts on the underside of the fender and two bolts at the frontmost part of the rack that hold it to the motorcycle. Many DR650s come factory with grab handles mounted to the rear of the motorcycle instead of the small cargo rack. They will need to be removed as the moto-mule cargo rack will take over their duty of holding the turn signals and giving you something to grab onto should you need to muscle the bike around. They are held on with two bolts on the outside of each handle and none on the underside of the fender. Once you have the factory cargo rack or grab handles removed, you'll need to remove the nuts holding the turn signals to them and set the signals aside. Now you can add the factory parts to your spare parts bin and grab your new moto-mule cargo rack and begin installing it. Set the moto-mule cargo rack in place by lining up the forwardmost holes in the rack with the same forwardmost holes that held your factory rack or grab handles. Install the shorter 8mm bolts supplied with the rack into the forwardmost holes and tighten them only finger tight. Repeat this same process on the other side of the rack. Next, grab one of the longer bolts and one of the aluminum spacers supplied with the rack. Slide the spacer in between the rack and the motorcycle subframe, and then insert the bolt through the rack and spacer and into the threaded hole in the motorcycle. Again, only finger tighten at this time. Repeat this same process on the other side of the rack. Now you can fully tighten all four bolts holding the rack onto the subframe. Install the turn signals into the rearmost holes on the moto-mule cargo rack and tighten them into place. Then, route the turn signal wires back up under the subframe and to their respective connections. Once again, you can ask yourself, why in the world did Suzuki decide to put the connection points where they did? After you make the connection for the left side turn signal, be sure to put the regulator rectifier back into place if you had to remove it to gain access to the connector. Before you reinstall the seat or side panels, be sure to test the turn signals to make sure the connections are all good. If everything works as it should, reinstall the seat and side panels. That concludes the installation video for the moto-mule rear cargo rack for the DR650. Be sure to check out our other videos so you can see all the features and benefits of this rack. Until next time, this is Mike from motomule.com telling you to get out there and stay out there.